the objective for today's meeting, and we're going to try to end at noon, is to introduce ourselves, introduce the Landlord Locator Project and its sponsors, and also other ways that you all can engage in the issue of homelessness and housing. We're going to be focusing primarily on the Landlord Locator Project, but we'll also be touching briefly on the other things that Peter Cook and I and Drew are doing to help congregations address housing and homelessness. So they will, and we'll have time later in the agenda to a little more detail, but they are developing affordable housing on faith property, which is one thing that Peter and I are working very intensively on. Assisting houses of faith with energy efficiency, which is something Peter's been working on recently, which he'll share with us, and then advocating for public policy solutions to homelessness and affordable housing crisis, which is something Peter and I have been working on for many years. I've been working on it for about 40 years. Peter's been working on it together with me, at least in New York, for about 8. So we'll be spending a little time on that, but not nearly enough. But we want to at least touch base on that, and then we can always follow up with all of you later on those things. But the primary objective today is to introduce you to the Landlord Locator Project, because it's really a terrific way of helping, short-term, very quick way of helping folks who are homeless to get into housing. I see we have 2 more people who just joined us. So if you've just joined us, please introduce yourselves. You know who you are. It's only 2 of you. Yeah.
Hi. Okay.
Yes.
Adrian, yes. Adrian, go ahead first.
Hi, good day. Yes, my name is Adrian Case. I'm the pastor for the Beulah SDA Church in Brooklyn.
You want me to call you back?
Great. Flora, I think you should be on mute. And then who else joined us? One other person.
Yeah. Or give me yours. What's yours?
So one other person joined us. Who was that? I missed the name.
I think it was me, Rachel. I just switched devices.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Rachel. All right. So so what we want to do is we're going to go into the 11:15 item, which we're only 3 minutes late. So I'm very happy about that. So first we want to talk about vouchers. So I'm not sure, Drew, if could someone share that? I want to keep the agenda up here. Could someone share we have a voucher explainer that will be, but by the way, we'll be providing all these documents to you later. But so I'll just start, and then maybe someone can share it. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment.
Stop.
And let me find my other voucher, my voucher explainer thing here. Here we are. Okay, good. Okay, and I'll start sharing again. So as I said, there are people often, when we talk about these vouchers, which is the federal emergency housing vouchers, which just new, we often get questions about, well, how does this relate to other vouchers? So we put a little sheet together to explain vouchers in general. So just briefly, when we address homelessness, there are various means that we have. We can produce affordable housing. We can help people stay in their homes. We can provide services to homeless and at-risk households. And we can also increase the income of households to help them pay for housing and other basic services, basic needs. And rental subsidy vouchers can help households pay for housing. And they are therefore the most effective and immediate remedies to addressing homelessness. And as of now, there are several newly enhanced rental vouchers available in New York City that have greatly improved homeless and at-risk households' possibilities to secure permanent housing. But despite this improved environment, much remains to be done to see that these vouchers are fully utilized and to significantly reduce homelessness in New York City. And that's what we're doing today. We want to help you to help us to find more landlords who are willing to learn about these vouchers and accept voucher holders. So if I can go over quickly the different vouchers that are out there, I think most of us have heard about federal Section 8 vouchers. These were introduced in 1949 as part of the Federal Housing Act. They remain the gold standard of vouchers. Anyone who's in public housing is in public housing as a result of Section 8. So Section 8 can either be project-based, which is in public housing, or voucher-based. People can take a voucher, take it to a landlord, and have their rent paid normally, and so Section 8 vouchers are normally issued for 20 to 30 year period, and they're traditionally renewed. So when someone has a Section 8 voucher, their rents will be subsidized as long as they fill out the right forms and qualify. So, and the Section 8 voucher generally will require that people pay only 1/3 of their income or 30% of their income in rent, where the voucher will pay the difference. So again, that's the gold standard of vouchers. Now, City FEPS is a voucher that was established under the de Blasio administration. And those vouchers are available to employed shelter residents earning within a certain income range. You can't earn too much, you can't earn too little. But the thing about these City FEPS vouchers is until recently, they were virtually inadequate to pay for most apartments in New York City. In fact, as of last June, there are only 500 apartments citywide that were actually rentable under the old City FEPS voucher level. But as a result of some leadership at City Council, the City FEPS voucher has now been improved. And so now they cover a much higher rent level, and which is terrific. And again, they will help tenants pay no more than 30% of their income towards rent. But they're only available to people in the shelters who are working. The state FEPS voucher, which was also recently enhanced, is a little broader in terms of who it'll help. It'll help people who are homeless, people who are at risk of homelessness, and specifically to those who are needed to secure other housing due to the risk of domestic violence. So this is a terrific voucher, just recently upgraded, and we expect will make a real difference. And then back to our voucher, the Federal Emergency Housing Voucher. This was established as a result of the Federal CARES Act of 2020. These vouchers are effective for a 10-year period and are available to homeless and at-risk households. And in addition, these vouchers carry with it some attention from the New York City Public Engagement Office to provide direct support for landlords. And also through enterprise partners, this voucher can carry with it the potential to help landlords do repairs on their apartments. And as with Section 8, they also subsidize rent, so the voucher holder pays no more than 30% of their income towards rent. And then the last that I have in the sheet is a voucher that we're hoping that will be made available. It's currently the subject of legislative and budgetary conversations at the state level. This would be the HAVP voucher, which we're hoping we can get passed. This would be a much broader voucher and ultimately could assist as many as 80,000 households across the state to cover their rent. But this is not yet a fact. This is now a hope. So next on the agenda is for us to describe the emergency housing voucher specifically. And if I could ask Jarrell to step into the breach, because we're trying to save Drew's voice. If you could come on screen and explain voucher. Yeah, you're okay?
I don't mind jumping into it, and
Okay,
if my voice gives out and Jarrell's free to help,
Jarrell
that'd be
can
fine.
fill in. Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Art, why don't you stop your share screen if you can?
Good idea.
So
I'll
we can
go
see
back
each
to,
other here.
and
Just,
you want to share the flyer?
Yep.
well, yeah.
Yeah, Drew will share the flyer. Okay. Thanks, Drew. Okay, good.
All right. So again, this is the Landlord Locator Project, the Interfaith Landlord Locator Project that we're running, and we're working with the city, the Mayor's Office of Public Engagement to help fulfill this project. So I think the key thing is anyone who's a New York City property owner or a broker can get involved in the program by speaking to the city. And there's no obligation here. They're just asking if you're willing to have a conversation with them to get some further information and be open to possibly seeing tenants that they would recommend you consider. You don't have to actually choose to do that, just have a conversation with them. And if you do choose to see tenants, it's completely up to you who you accept, either from their program or from anywhere else. You're not locked out of other options. So to review in a little more detail, the benefits include that there is a repair fund and a unit hold incentive, which means if there's something with the apartment where it is not meeting the necessary standards for rental, you can go through them to get considered for funding, which will help you make repairs to the unit to bring it into appropriate standards. There's also a unit hold fee at the moment for 1 month, where as you get into the lease up process, you're being given 1 month's rent as you're kind of holding the unit for to be considered by tenants they would recommend. There is guaranteed monthly rent payment. Essentially, your tenants would only be paying roughly 30% of their income towards the rent. Everything else is covered by the city, and that 30% changes if their income changes. If their income goes down, so does the percent they contribute. So there's no struggle to make sure that you get the rest of the rent. It comes from the city. You get matched with a qualified tenant. So the city is doing their own process for reviewing and vetting individuals, and they're going through, I believe it is 12 different city programs. The program is prioritizing those who are homeless, at risk of homelessness, and or fleeing some form of domestic violence. The vast majority of those who are being placed through this program are already have some form of verified income, and also are families with children. While going through the program, you, from the very beginning straight through, have an on-call support person assigned to you, where you have a city specialist. You'll have their name, their phone number, and their email address, and they'll be able to work with you on everything from learning about the program to filling out the paperwork, meeting your potential tenants, signing the lease, and ongoing support throughout the rental as it goes on. There's also a security deposit in case there's any issue that ever comes up, like with any other tenant. And again, just a reminder, these are basically just the same kind of tenants you would be getting through any other program, or any other avenue of advertisement where they may be going through a tough time at the moment. And it's a great opportunity if you're interested in supporting anything to do with helping the homelessness crisis, to be able to get yourself an opportunity to both contribute to the greater good while securing yourself some very reliable income.
And Drew, I want to interrupt a second, just to give you a chance to pause for a moment. But remember, what we're doing here is we're asking you to consider, some of you may be landlords, but most of you are not, but most of you are part of networks that we hope can help identify and raise the issue and spread the word to landlords. So what we're hoping will come out of today's meeting is that we can have further conversations with some of you about reaching out to faith leaders who can reach out to landlords who would be interested in learning more about the program. So that's our objective today. We're really we're reaching out to a network of folks who are networkers who we hope you can help us identify landlords who may be members of the congregation or members of the community who are interested in learning about this. So sorry, Drew.
No problem. And again, I would like to, again, as Mark said, circle back to the fact that this was a document written pretty much to be directed towards landlords. It also applies to brokers. If anyone knows or is a broker, they can also be involved in this program, and they get a 15% commission, which is the highest allowed by law. So it's pretty, and they don't even have to find tenants. The city will supply the tenants. So for brokers, it's a particularly good deal. They get more money for less work. So again, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to follow up with you. And if you're a faith leader, we're again not asking you to guarantee anyone's participation in the program. There is no commitment. We're just asking that they have a conversation with me so that I can answer any initial questions. And then if they want to move on from there, I can connect them for a second conversation with the city, who will answer any questions they might have further, and then let them decide if they want to become part of the program or not. Again, neither conversation requires a commitment.
Thanks, Drew. So let's take some questions. I see one from Miriam. Question was, can a landlord accept this voucher if accepting other vouchers? Absolutely. They can identify an apartment that is good for this voucher. And then the city will find tenants for them to interview. And there, as Drew said, there's no obligation to accept any tenant. We just ask them to talk to the tenants and consider if they'd be a good tenant. And of course, the nice thing, as I think Drew mentioned, is that in addition to these rents, these paying rents at or above fair market rate, this also brings with it the possibility of having the apartment be repaired with money from enterprise. So if a landlord has an apartment, they've been wanting to rent, but they need to repair it, they can get some repair money to bring their apartment up to speed.
Two quick
Mr.
comments
yeah,
before
go
we move
ahead.
on to the next person, if you don't mind. So again, when you're meeting
Yeah.
tenants, they will actually refer 3, 4, or 5 tenants at a time where you can have an open house either in person or virtually, and get to meet tenants and decide if you're comfortable with them. And again, if you find a tenant through another source that you'd rather go with, you are welcome to do that. Even once you meet tenants, you can still take any source tenant that comes to you. This is just another option. And as Mark mentioned, the rents are very competitive. In general, they are slightly above market rate, but also they are zip code based. So there's the opportunity if certain rents in your area are higher than market rate, that they have exceptions based on zip code, which will allow you to get higher rents based on your neighborhood.
Mhm. I think Mr. Manso, from Pong Manso had his hand up. So yes, why don't
Yes.
you ask a question and we'll look at the rest in the
Yes,
messages. Yes.
my name is Yao from Paul Manson. I'm the pastor for Emmanuel Presbyterian Reformed Church in the Bronx. We occupy 2 buildings. The first one is the church house, which is a 1913 building. And the second one is the manse, which I'm in at the moment, is 1920. We've done internal renovation, but the outside, this 1913 is made of blocks. There are cracks and other things, and the contractor is charging about $150,000. It is a PCUSA property anyway that we are occupying, but it is for us. Now, do we have any where to go for grants to support us, since the internal renovation itself has taken a chunk of money from our budget?
If I may, I think there's some stuff that we will have that may help out with that. But at the moment, we're talking about the Landlord Locator Project, which is slightly different. Once we finish this section, I think there'll be other topics which may be relevant and times that we can circle back to that.
But I'm wondering, were you
Right.
talking about renovating the property so that you could rent it to these tenants?
No, the church house itself is the sanctuary that we
Right.
worship in.
Okay,
And this month is the one that I occupy. I pay
I
rent
see.
on it.
right.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
good.
So, well,
yeah.
we will, thank you so much. We're going to return to that a little later in this program. So, good, just hold that question, okay?
Right. Thank you.
So let's take a look at some of the questions here. I'm not sure if I'm going to get it in order, but we have one question that says, does it matter? No, we covered that. Can co-op boards be part of the program? Can people who sublet rooms be part? I don't think, Drew, I don't know you or Jarrell, I don't know that we.
I can't speak to the co-op board piece directly because I'm not sure, but I can speak to the sublet. It can't be a sublet. It has to be a full standalone apartment. There are certain requirements that if you meet the SRO requirements that they can do that. But as far as I know, it can't be just a room. And in terms of the co-op board, again, if they are, whoever is the landlord, if they're the landlord or a broker, they can do it. And beyond that, I don't know how the co-op board intersects with that. If they're offering apartments, I imagine they could, but if they're simply screening people for the apartments, I think you would have to have the landlord or the broker be the one who takes part directly.
Yeah. Jarrell, do you have any, I guess there are often apartments and buildings that are co-ops, but some of the apartments are for rent. So I guess as long as it's a 10-year, it's a 10-year voucher, so there have to be a long-term rental. But we can look into that, I think, right? Find out. The next question, are programs available for homeless single men or about families and women? And, Drew, maybe this would be a good moment to talk about how the tenants are found. I don't know if you have the sheet up there, but
Sure. No, I can.
Yeah.
I don't have the other sheet, but I can speak to it. So, as I may have referred to, there's, I believe, around 12 different programs for the city that are screening people into this. So, yes, I believe homeless men can be screened into the program. This program is not only for women, children, or families with children, They are prioritized, but anyone who is in need could be screened into the program. Again, although the focus does lean towards those who are families with children and those who may be experiencing some form of domestic violence.
And
I
think
also
what we-
saw
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
a question from Flora about, is this only for New York City tenants? I believe the program that we are dealing with is only for people who are within the 5 boroughs of New York City, but there may be other programs beyond that that we can try to find out more information if you want to stay in touch. But this one does deal only with the 5 boroughs in New York. I'll be happy to stay on for a minute at the end and make sure you have my email address.
Drew,
And also,
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. We have pushed beyond the boroughs with the displaced refugees because the rents are so high. And so we've gone right over the North Bronx into Mount Vernon, which is right over that Westchester County line, trying to get more affordable rents.
I
And
understand, and just so if I hear back, we have asked if they will go into Westchester and Yonkers, and
Okay.
I haven't gotten 100% answer yet, but I think they said initially they didn't think so, but I am inquiring.
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, also I wanted to mention that Drew does have a list of the 12 agencies that are screening for this particular voucher. And maybe what Drew can do is, because Peter has put them up and made links. In fact, the links are in the chat, and we will send everyone all the links. Maybe we can also include that. Maybe Drew, you can get that over to Peter. We can include that in one of the linked documents, because again, the agencies will screen people and then refer them to the landlords, but people can also go to these agencies and ask to be accepted. We can go that way as well. So Drew, maybe we can have that for folks. So any other questions? You can raise your hand. Yes, Miriam. You're muted.
Are you asking us to like screen landlords for you? Or, I mean, a lot of our churches, our members rent. We could ask them to supply their landlords' names. Would that help?
So
I think, yeah, go ahead.
if
Drew.
I may,
Yeah.
we're not asking anyone to screen anyone at all. We're only asking that we spread the word. If there's a landlord or a broker who's interested, they don't need to, I mean, again, as a faith leader, we're asking you to spread the word. If they might be interested, we're happy to speak to them. And they don't need to be sure they're interested. They don't need to be committed now, or even right up to the point they make a choice. Yes, I'll take that tenant. So if you have any contact with landlords or brokers, please, we would be happy to have you spread the word. There's no screening necessary. And basically, again, they can just make a choice of if they're willing to let the city send them applicants, and if they're willing to take them. And again, they can always take any tenant they wish instead.
Yeah, and Jarrell had a point. Go ahead, Jarrell.
Hi, guys. So through the screening process, the public engagement unit / housing support unit takes over that area, in which they support with tenant placement. So they help track down any missing checks or city-related payment issues that may occur. If the tenant leaves, they can assist with finding a new one. Generally, if they have an issue, they can try and help them with anything they raise for us and connect them to a resource. So they don't have a specific referral path for a tenant, like for example, with non-payments or certain any issues that may arise, but they have an aftercare program, if implemented, that would be able to provide. So mainly the public engagement unit, housing support unit, they deal with most of the screening and on the tenant, and you also get to meet the tenant as well through the caseworker.
So I see Adrian has his hand up, but I also see a question from Alice Sturm Sutter. What happens when a landlord is found to be negligent? Well, once the rental agreement is completed, then this is just like any other agreement between a tenant and a landlord. And so that certainly if the tenant finds that the landlord is negligent, they would have to deal with that any way that any other tenant would.
Yeah, the landlord and the tenant both are being connected through this program, but they have the same relationship any other landlord and tenant would be, and they're open to the same risks and benefits. I mean, any tenant could turn out to be a great tenant or a bad tenant. Any landlord could turn out to be a great landlord or a bad landlord, and they have all the same public options to resolve that the way anyone else would. The program does not get involved in the relationship between them, except with some consultation and some light assistance to try to help them resolve it, maybe through conversation, but there is no legal involvement on the behalf of the program. It's an introduction and a rent payment.
Okay, Adrian has a question, and also
Yeah.
I see a question that was raised that we were gonna address in a few minutes about Rendell Church. But Adrian, go ahead.
Yes, just for clarity, what about tenants? They may have an apartment, but they're now having challenges, paying their rent. I realize you're saying that this is specifically for tenants, this program.
Right.
I mean landlord.
Yeah.
But what about the tenants? May have some difficulty now paying rent, etc. Is there any benefit for them, or just strictly for the landlord?
No, certainly. If I could answer, so this is a way of a tenant qualifying to get a voucher. If they're having real difficulty paying rent, they may be able to qualify through one of these 12 city agencies to secure this 10-year voucher, which would mean that they could pay. Now, I would think though that they might need to find another apartment with this voucher. They couldn't. I don't know, Jarrell or Drew, if we've asked if someone
sure.
can be at a right.
Yeah,
They need to
there's
find another apartment. Yeah.
most definitely. There's multiple agencies that are making EHV referrals for tenants. You have the New York City Department of Homeless Services. You also have New York City Human Resources Administration, HRA, and I'll share that in the chat with everybody. You also have HIV/AIDS Service Administration, Office of Domestic Violence, Homelessness Prevention Administration, and many other agencies. So I'll definitely share that in the chat with you guys.
And then the question Jane asked, how long does the voucher last? So the vouchers are 10 years. As long as the tenant and the landlord do what they're supposed to do, it's a 10-year voucher. My sense is we don't know what's going to happen in 10 years, but since federal Section 8 vouchers are generally renewed, my sense is if this voucher would probably renewable as well. As to what the rents, if the rents go up, these apartments would be governed by the same rules as any other apartments. If their rent stabilized, they would be limited in terms of how much they go up. I'm not sure what happens if they're market rate, and we don't yet know that yet. But clearly, it's a 10-year voucher, and if the rent goes up, then the voucher can go up to cover the rent. This is the plan, and if the income of the tenant changes, the voucher gets adjusted to be sure that the full rent is paid. Do we have another question? Let's see. Okay. Okay, thank you, Jarrell, okay. So let's just take a few minutes. We're almost on time. We want just to reiterate what it is we're asking of you here in terms of helping to get the word out. So we will share with you all of this material, including the flyer and the vouchers explained and the other links. And if you know of landlords that you think would be open to learning about this, what we ask you to do is reach out to Drew, primarily at drew@iahh.org, and that will be, we can include that in the chat, but it's also be in the material that we send you. But that's what we're looking for. So it could be having us make an announcement at your congregation, could be Bob having us make an announcement at a meeting of the presbytery to all the pastors, or again, any network that you think would be appropriate for us to speak to. Each apartment is a life changed, and there are 7. The state has been given 7,000 of these vouchers, so we have a lot of good to do, and we need to find places where people can be housed. Any other questions on the vouchers, and then we're going to move on to some other issues.
Just wanted to
Yeah,
echo what Mark said. While I'm happy to speak to anyone individually, I'm also happy to speak to members of your congregation. with you or without you. So again, whatever you think or they think would be helpful, I'm happy to arrange a conversation one-on-one as a group via phone, Zoom, whatever would be convenient for you and or those you recommend.
Thanks, Drew. Okay, now we're going to take another, we have 15 minutes to close, but what we want to do is, again, spend a few minutes talking about the other things that Peter and I primarily do. So Peter and I are members of a group that called the Partnership for Faith-Based Affordable Housing Community Development, along with Bricks and Mortals and the Interfaith Affordable Housing Collaborative. And we do many things. We try to help congregations to be more stable and to serve the community. And one of the things we do is helping congregations develop affordable housing on their property. So Peter, you want to say a few words about that? Peter's really the expert. And let me just say that the collaborative does this statewide, though we have funding from Trinity Church to do it citywide, but we've also identified some other resources out of New York City to help congregations to do that. So Peter, the floor is yours.
Great. So our goal here is to help you as congregations make the best use of your property to further your mission and to also impact your community through your witness and through your buildings. So the Landlord Locator Project is one expression of that, but specifically, we do have money available to congregations in New York City that would like to repurpose their buildings or property to build affordable housing. And that money is for you to get the expertise needed to do the legal, zoning, architectural, title analysis with a skilled attorney, so that when you get to the point of negotiating with an affordable housing developer, you are not taken advantage of and that your interests are well represented. So when we do that work, we look at your property and we try to make some determination whether there's potential to build affordable housing there. If there is, we will, lead you through the next steps. If there's not, we also work with Bricks and Mortals that can help you look at affordable housing uses for your property, rentals, renovations, and so on. And then the second piece of this is when we talk to you, we can help you evaluate your energy use and to give you some guidance as to, how to obtain financing and vendors, using that financing to make changes to your property to make it energy efficient. We do that across the state. And the program I mentioned about affordable housing, we do have ways to consult with you if you're not in New York City. We have access to other kinds of funds that we can send you to discuss your property needs.
Yeah, and Peter, if I could just add, because I'm responding to, I think Reverend Flora Wilson-Bridges' chat about Randall Church interested in developing church property to build safe haven housing. This is terrific. As Peter said, we've gotten some funding from the Collegiate Church of New York, but primarily from the Trinity Church to provide up to $30,000 in pre-development funds to help a congregation with property determine what can it do with its property. And so if Rendell wants to look at developing a safe haven on its property, I think that'd be terrific, because as some of you may know, there are various ways of providing assistance to people who are homeless. Safe haven is one of the lowest bar to entry to folks on the street who are afraid of shelters, but who really need to come off the street and want to find someplace safe. And Safe Haven is the perfect remedy for that. So certainly let's be sure to follow up with you and see if we can help you figure out what's possible.
Yeah.
The point is, it's hardest to find the money initially before you have a plan. Once you have a plan, then you can get funding from the city or the state. But before you know what you want to do with the money, it's hard to raise it. So we try to fill in that gap with our pre-development funds.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There was a question here, Mark.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sharon, for this clarifying point. The program we are offering to congregations is funded. This is through the New York State Council of Churches by NYSERDA to consult with congregations throughout the state about their energy use and to make introductions to vendors like Block Power, like the Accelerator program, but also to look at the use of solar on your property, and also to help your congregation reach out to homeowners and renters in your community about obtaining solar for their housing, and also to help you advocate for affordable housing and environmental justice in your community.
Yeah, I want to thank Peter. We just got this program up and running. Peter's managing it, and it's terrific because there are some local laws in New York City that are required for congregations over 25,000 square feet to abide by, but every congregation should look at its energy use and try to be more efficient in its energy use. So we're really excited about this new way that we can help. So let's move into the last area, which is a big area that we can spend hours on, but this is the whole question of advocating for public policy solutions to homelessness and affordable housing. And Peter and I have been doing this again for a long time. There are various ways of looking at this. Just a general frame is that what the Interfaith Assembly does, we look at, as I mentioned earlier, with regard to vouchers. One, can we help build more affordable housing? Two, can we help prevent people from becoming homeless? Three, can we help provide services? And four, can we promote income? And there are always opportunities to do that. And over the last 10 years, frankly, the Interfaith Assembly and the New York State Council of Churches, with a lot of our allies, have really made some great progress. In fact, the fact is that about 6 years ago, the census in New York City was about 61,000. It's now under 50,000. So we've really made some progress with various advances. Right now, New York State is determining its budget, as noted in the voucher explainer sheet. We're hoping that the housing access voucher program will be passed. It may or may not. These things often take years. I think it's about the second or third year we've been working on it. But in addition to that, at the state level, there are some issues that we're working at the city level. And just to mention two, one is the fact that, well, 10 years ago, we helped work on a project that ended up resulting in a commitment from the city and the state to build 35,000 supportive housing units over 15 years. A lot of them have been built, or at least been started. But currently, there are 2,500 vacant supportive housing units in New York City because the staffing is not there at the city level to place individuals in the housing that they need. Terribly short-sighted. And we've actually recently been in touch with Gail Brewer, who's, as you know, as many of you know, was borough president, now is the chair of the oversight committee at the city council. She's assured us that she's staffing up to take a look at this and other issues. So there are checks and balances. The city council needs to hold the city accountable. As I say, it's like having a car and not being able to drive it because you don't have a key. We have the apartments, we have people who need the housing, we need staff to place them. And then, so this is one, and then also at the issue with staffing, as we said, we work on helping congregations develop affordable housing. There's such short staffing at the housing department, HPD, that the city is having a real hard time getting money out the door to pay for these construction projects. Again, another issue that I think Gail Brewer and others will be looking at, try to get the city to really live up to its potential. But these are ways that congregations can change policy in big ways. In addition to the supportive housing work, we were very active in making sure that there's now a right to counsel in housing court. As a result of that, over the last 8 years, we've reduced evictions by about 50%. We need to do more in that regard. We've also, at the state level, established stronger rent laws than ever in history. That's saved tens of thousands of people from losing their homes. So there are many ways that as a community, faith community, we can work with advocates and really change the face of homelessness. And Peter and I certainly look forward to working with all of you here to let you know how we can do that. So
if I could just say quickly,
Yeah.
Mark. So we're looking at a state budget right now, which includes the money for housing access vouchers and also a radical expansion of the rent relief ERAP. Whether those things are going to survive in the state budget or not, we don't know. But this is the time to call your legislator like today and tell them to put as much as they can in the budget for housing, particularly housing access voucher program. And you can see the legislative asks for the Council of Churches around housing. I put that in the chat. You can also go on our website at nyscoc.org and you can see the background papers on that and seminars. The other thing I would just say is if you are a faith leader and would like to send a letter to the governor, really pushing her for expansion on housing and other needs, please fill out that letter on the link. I put that in the chat and we're going to send that to her today.
Thank you, Peter. So I've reshared the end of our agenda, which again we'll be sharing with everyone who's registered. But just again to reiterate, in terms of the landlord locator effort, please reach out to Drew to express interest and get more information. That's Drew's email and phone number. Share the flyer and encourage landlords and brokers you know to consider looking into this opportunity. Reach out to us about conversation with us and or with those you refer one-on-one or as a group. And again, as Drew said, there's no commitment from landlords. We're just asking those who might be interested in learning more. And then we would connect those landlords with the city specialist to explore if the program might work for them. And again, at the bottom of our sheet is Drew's contact information, my contact information, Peter's contact information. We'll be sending this all to you. But let me just say, it's been great to have you all with us. We've had a very good attendance. About 25 people attended, and we hope to continue to work with you. We've got a lot of vouchers and a lot of people with vouchers who need housing, and all we need are landlords to accept them. And as Drew said, these are among the best opportunities for landlords. This guaranteed income, it's at or above market rate. You get support from the city. And one of the things that we've been talking about is actually connecting the tenants with some other support, some personal support. And this is something we're working on. But this is a great, as from a Jewish perspective, there's a real mitzvah to find landlords that are willing to do this. And as we know, those of us who've worked with people who are homeless, who are getting back on their feet, they can often be the best tenants and the best community members because they really appreciate what they're being offered. So any other questions or comments?
Before we run, I wanted to just say, I'll stay on if anyone wants to talk after 12. And I'm going to share that list of agencies that if you know people who are looking, they can go to ask to be screened into this program. I'll share that in the chat.
Great.
Yeah.
Peter, any last comments?
I just say, again, if you want to take a look at your property to repurpose for affordable housing, or if you want consultation on energy needs for your church, just put your name in the chat and we'll follow up.
And also, let me just say to Steve and Giovanna, who just joined us, everything we will be sharing with you. If you've registered, we'll be sharing with you a link to the entire recording. and also the documents that we've been sharing. So glad you joined us. I'm sorry you're late, but you'll be able to get everything that we talked about when we follow up with you. So any other questions? I think we're pretty much a faith group. I'm wondering if anyone would mind if we close with a blessing. Anyone mind? No? Mary, welcome. Good to see you. I'm glad you joined us. Mary and I know each other much longer than I even knew we knew each other. I learned recently that Mary and I have been working together for 35 years. But I don't know, Mary, can I impress upon you to lead us in a blessing? Would you be willing to do that? Is that a no? Okay. Okay. Who would like to lead us in a blessing? Reverend Bridges, would you like to?
Certainly.
I'll do it.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mary,
all right,
Mary,
fine.
Mary, go ahead, please. Mary, are you going to do it?
No, this was strong, but since
No,
you
yeah.
asked me, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
No, again, Reverend Bridges, please. Yes.
Okay. Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for these wonderful people who have dedicated so much of their lives to try to help find homes for those who are without homes. We are just so grateful for the resources that they have presented to us this afternoon. We ask, dear God, that this may sink deeply into our hearts in the faith communities so that we might reach out as you did, Lord Jesus, during the time when you walked the earth, reaching out to those who need help finding shelter. Bless us now as we take on this endeavor more deeply than we have taken it on before. And please bless everyone who is in this meeting. We ask, Lord, that you keep us safe, protect us, and above all, protect those who do not have a roof over their heads that they can call their own. We ask this in the name of the mighty name, your name, Lord God. Amen.
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 Thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much, Reverend Bridges.
You're welcome.
Great.